Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Myth. So, Taryn got a brand new series starting for you today because over the next 10 weeks I'm going to be talking about my 10 favorite beat 'em ups of all time. Stuff that you're not going to see on any top 10 list is going to be obscure, deep cuts that are some of my favorites. And there's no way I could do a series on this genre without starting with Warrior Blade Rastan Saga III, because to me this is a perfect beat 'em up and it is my favorite game in the genre. I'm not here to convince you it's the best ever made, I'm just here to tell you it is my absolute favorite. I think this game can do no wrong. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But Rastan Saga III just does everything right in my opinion. It's an old school side-scrolling beat 'em up with a little bit of a hack and slash component, and it's basically Conan the Barbarian as a game. I fell in love with the Rastan series at Village Pizza in Okemo, Vermont back when I was skiing. It was there as an arcade cabinet, and I think I spent more money playing Rastan and beating that game than I did on actual pizza. So when I found out that there was a Warrior Blade 3, I absolutely had to play the game, and ever since I played it maybe 20 years ago, it has been my favorite beat 'em up of all time. And if you can't tell already, this is an ultra widescreen because the arcade cabinet had two monitors and the board has two connections to have those two monitors playing at the same time. This is widescreen gaming in 1991, long before widescreen televisions were commonplace. But this is just the simplest game at face value. Go left, go right, destroy all the enemies, beat the bosses, and see the credits scroll. But I absolutely love the universe of Rastan Saga, and that is just down to loving the Conan the Barbarian movies. Growing up, these are the type of things that my dad would show me on weekends, and I absolutely love that movie time with him, watching these old classics from when he was growing up and absolutely loving them. So honestly, there's a lot of nostalgia involved in this game, all down to Conan the Barbarian. But the formula is simple. There's only a few buttons. There's a magic button, there's a jump button, there's an attack button. That's all you really need to do. This is more of an old school beat 'em up because it was on the cusp of the late 80s to early 90s, and it definitely feels very close to the original Rastan, outside of the fact that you're no longer locked to a single plane. You can go up and down into the screen. But I love what this game does visually as well. All of the enemy designs, all of the sprite work in the backgrounds just look absolutely outstanding for 1991. They're big, they're well animated, and they actually lack color. Normally when I talk about games, I talk about all the different colorways and loving the vibrancy and what they could do in graphics in the 2D era. But I really appreciate that Rastan Saga III actually mutes the color palette down to these grays and browns and other colors that were really endemic to the whole sword and sandal genre of films, which is totally a thing if you've never heard of that before. And there's so many different levels to experience in Rastan Saga III, and so many different routes through the game. You can play up to, I believe, 14 different areas if you choose a particular path, but every playthrough is going to be slightly different. There is a ton of replayability in this game, which is very impressive for a beat 'em up. Usually there's just one path, you get your ending, you move on, and maybe you never play again. But so much of what this game does is because of the widescreen aspect, being able to move so far left and right, being able to see so far in front of you, having all of the sprite work and background work give you this much depth in what amounts to a 2D image totally works. And all of the character designs are very unique and different. You have these guys in togas throwing these rings at you that are basically emaciated thin, and then you have these soldiers here, and I will let you listen in just a moment, that are speaking German throughout the entire game. This is the Japanese ROM. It has English text and German speech. It's a very interesting mix. It reminds me a lot of the intro to Rondo of Blood. But as we scale these stairs here, there's so many different areas in Rastan Saga III. They're all unique, they're all different, they all have great bosses to encounter. This game just keeps the pedal down and makes you play and has tons of action the entire way through. And you'll see here we got a summoning crystal, so now we can summon the wizard. If you hit him from behind, depending on the magic power up, he's going to do a bigger or lesser attack. You can freeze your enemies and you can destroy them. But this game has my favorite track from Taito of all time. Go ahead and listen, I'll be right back.
Follow this plan. We begin putting fine.
That to me is just perfect music, and it totally fits the theme of Rastan. The entire series always had great music, even Rastan Saga II, which is a dumpster fire 1 out of 10 game every day of the week and twice on Sunday, has amazing music, and that's the interesting thing about Rastan in general. The first game, an absolute classic. The third game, a hidden gem classic. The middle game, something that you should avoid at all costs unless you want to play all 3 games. And I love this boss here as well. It really isn't much of a boss. He just shoots out these flaming skulls, but it is basically a skeleton king rotting on his throne saying, "Help me, kill me," over and over again. This game oozes style. Those blood red curtains and carpet, everything in it just sells the overall story of Rastan Saga III. And the great part is you get a decent amount of story as well. Obviously it's an arcade game, so you're not getting console level deep, but it gives you a lot to see, and it gives you different branching paths as well. You can choose your route through the game, and you'll get different power-ups and different treasures as you do so, which can make the game easier or harder. I don't really know if there is a best route through Rastan Saga III. I'm sure no one's ever put that much thought into it, but you can definitely play it and decide which route works for you. And the game definitely mixes up the play styles as well. Now we're sliding down this hill, fighting in real time, but in a different level, you're going to be on horseback fighting these horsed archers. It is so much fun. This game constantly changes what it's doing. You never get that beat 'em up weariness where you feel like you've been doing the same thing for half an hour or so. And honestly, 32 minutes after you hit start, you're going to see the credits scroll. This is a tight 32 minutes. It's concise, it's compact, it's action-packed, and you're never bored the entire time you're playing it. The only bad thing about Rastan Saga III is that 1, it ends, and 2, barely anyone seems to know about it because this is an incredibly rare arcade board, but the nice thing is it does emulate in MAME, so you can experience it, and I love this water effect right here as well. There's so many graphical effects that are subtle, but really do sell the illusion of that 3-layer parallax. And you'll see here, the levels have verticality as well. You can climb these chains and continue up this pirate ship. There's always something to see, always something to do, and most importantly, always something to hack with your sword in the game. But I'm going to give you one more sound sample because the soundtrack definitely varies a lot, and this next tune is totally melodic in a fun way. So enjoy!
Go. Follow this path.
Wahrheit. Beschütze ihn und bekämpfe den Feind.
Es ist nur ein Mensch.
Wahrheit. Beschütze mich und bekämpfe den Feind.
I love that music, but it's exactly what you would not expect out of an action-packed beat-em-up, but I think it works really well within the context of the game. The developers, the artists, the musicians all came together to give Rastan Saga III such a good and unique vibe, and when Taito was firing on all cylinders, they could make some of the best arcade games of all time, and when they weren't, they could make games like Dino Rex. Taito was always an uneven developer, but I would say Rastan Saga III is them doing their absolute best to make an incredible game, and this is definitely hands down the best Conan the Barbarian game ever made, even if it doesn't have the license whatsoever. It is definitely a movie franchise that could have used a lot more love in the video game space. All of the bosses are different and unique, they're all large sprites, and the game runs at a great frame rate, never really dipping down no matter how much action is going on screen at once. But the bosses are really some of the stars of the show here. There's so many different types, and like I mentioned earlier with the German reminding me of Rondo of Blood, if that's not the Dark Priest Shaft, I have absolutely no idea who it is because it's giving me big Shaft vibes. No, not the action movie star, the villain from Castlevania. But that's the great part about Rastan Saga III. There's so many different influences packed into one game, and every single one of them work. And once you get through all of the different areas that you can select, you do go to one final area, the Temple of Not Going to try to pronounce that. Rastan Saga III is 30 minutes of perfection in my opinion. I am never bored with this game. I play it at least once a year. I always have fun with it, and I did a video on it probably 3.5 years ago. But when I decided to make a series on my 10 favorite deep cut beat 'em up games, this was the first on the list, and I didn't even have to think about it. I've been trying to, as long as I've been doing this channel, to convince more people to play Rastan Saga III. So if you've never heard of this game and you've never played it, definitely do me that favor. If you have played it, leave me a comment down below. And if you know where there's an arcade cabinet for it in North America, I would be very curious because this is one PCB I absolutely want to purchase, but the price just makes me hesitant. This is a $2,000 game all day long, and while I love it more than any other beat 'em up ever made, I still don't know if I ever really want to spend that money. Maybe I can work a trade with somebody where I actually don't have to open my wallet. But if I felt like being stupid or had a few too many drinks and got near eBay, this is the type of thing that I would probably end up buying and still not regretting. The only thing I regret about this game, like I said earlier, is that it does have to end, and it's actually a very sad ending because Rastan doesn't find all of the treasures and he goes back into the world to try to find the kingdom where he can be king. And the last message the game gives you is that hopefully Rastan can continue his story to the player in a new game later on. We never got it and it breaks my heart. Short of that, we're done. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.